And we're going to hit record while we're doing all the techie things. There we go. Did that work? That did not work. Yes, it did. No, it did not.
We
There
are
we go.
professional.
We are totally professionals and we are now live. And why is that not visible? Give me 2 seconds to work out what we're doing. And we're side by side. We want that to play. We want that to pause. We want to see the chat. Alrighty, we are professionals and we are here recording 3P conversations with my delightful friend Ian, Ian-ish today, apparently.
We're a little confused today.
That's all right. The arena system, we're a little confused most days.
Yeah.
From the arena system. And today's topic is too much. So this week, and this is a common trigger for me, and I know I'm not alone in this, but that sense that I am too much.
Mm.
And this week I've been playing with ChatGPT. I've been getting a whole bunch of things done. And I thought this is great because I'm not going to burn out ChatGPT. Like I can't be too much for the AI. However, apparently I can.
Yeah.
And so then I ended up rather triggered because now I'm too much for even the AI and I exceeded its capacity. And
Mhm.
then I end up in this dance. Now, one of the ways in which I exceeded ChatGPT's capacity and my own and ended up very triggered was there's an image that I love about perspective taking, and it's got 2 people looking at different sides of the 6 and the 9, and then they've got their bubble. And I was trying to get ChatGPT to recreate that image.
Yeah.
I think I communicate really well. I am not so convinced when
Mm.
I'm in conversation with ChatGPT. And so I started with a core image and I was just getting it to edit it, but the edits kept ending up really bizarre. So at one point, the guy that was seeing 6 was looking at a 9, and the guy seeing 9 was looking at a 6. And I said, can we just rotate that 180 degrees?
Hmm.
And I didn't say that, like I specifically said the sideways, and it rotated it and made it an 8. And I just went backwards and forwards, which annoyed the crap out of me. And everyone in my household got tension tagged with, I can't cope with this. I need you to be as bothered by this as I am.
I am so bothered on your behalf right now.
It was so frustrating. And I ended
Yeah.
up giving up. I ended up just creating something else. I'm like,
Hmm.
this is not that important, Amy. Let it go, create something else.
Hmm.
But that moment where it said, you have exceeded my capacity, I the trigger in I am too much was massive. And yeah, I feel you. I did ask, did we want to start with triggered? I meant
I
it.
know. Let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. Oh, and definitely not. Oh, let's just do it.
It it's such a hard one, and I think I'm feeling a little bit calmer about it now because I did have several rants about it.
Hmm.
But where I landed was, am I too much or does it have not enough capacity? Now, I would argue it has not
Oh.
enough capacity. However, when I'm talking about ChatGPT, that lands reasonably nicely. ChatGPT is inadequate. ChatGPT can't do everything that I want. That works
Hmm.
perfectly fine. When we transition that to my husband, who is likely to say,
Yeah.
I don't have enough capacity, it starts to not be nice. Like it starts to be really, really. And so I was thinking about it, and then I still had the 6 and 9 in my head. So if you want to balance out the 6 and 9, what both of them are seeing is 7.5 plus or minus 1.5. And then everybody is agreed
I like
on
that.
this is what we're seeing.
Yes. Hmm.
And so my question that I'm exploring, and I don't have an answer yet, is what's that 7.5 plus or minus 1.5 when it comes to the you are too much, you are not enough battle
Mm.
that plays out with capacity?
Well.
And if you have an answer, we're good. Like,
I
awesome.
mean, part of it is we are now talking, if we're talking about AI, we're talking about a tool and people can program it to increase its capacity.
Yeah.
If we're talking about spouses
Yeah. Or coaches or
or
friendships or
coaches,
children or
other
anyone in
human
my life.
beings, their capacity is what their capacity is. And we might wish their capacity was more.
Yeah.
And yet we can't reprogram them as hard as we might try
We
and
can
want to.
try.
To have a higher capacity, and often trying to reprogram other people to increase their capacity ends up lowering their capacity.
It certainly lowers their autonomy, which I think is very closely
right.
linked to capacity for so many people.
Yes. Oh, for sure. And is it their job to have enough capacity to handle us?
Well, for the AI, I would say a very clear yes.
Sure. If we're talking about a carbon-based life form.
Um,
Mhm.
and then there is, I will note, because my teenagers are screaming in my head, like my literal teenagers' voices,
Yeah.
not my inner
Not your
teenager.
parts. Yeah.
Um, she's on board too. Um, there is an environmental impact, like raising the capacity
Mhm.
of AI is having a huge impact. And so I feel like I just need to put in a disclaimer. I'm aware of that.
Mhm.
If I could solve that problem, I would. I'm still going to use
Yeah.
AI. I use
Mhm.
my own electricity. We're at 99% self-sufficient this month, which
Wow.
is very cool.
Yeah.
And we give back electricity to the grid. So I feel like in some small, minute way, I am offsetting my carbon
Mhm.
imprint with the solar system. But yeah, like you say, with regards to humans, we can't reprogram, we can't expand. It's
Mhm.
not a matter of just grabbing some more RAM. We can equip them with tools, and
Mhm.
manipulative Myrtle is definitely
Uh-huh.
navigating that this week as she co-opts everyone in the household to contribute to
Mhm.
building a program that was carefully chosen for what they specifically need to learn and grow in,
Mhm. Mhm.
including my husband. But it's it was a real challenge for me. So the yelling about the AI, no one cares. Like, everyone was happy to be tension tagged by me, and the AI is dumb and the AI is not good enough and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Now, ironically, you go into most women's circles, they'll do the same thing about husbands.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I had a conversation with a friend. I don't remember if it was this week that we just did or the week before. And she shared something with me, and she said I couldn't ever share that anywhere else because. So, what I heard was the pattern, and I immediately validated the emotion, like I'm the first to offer a shovel to go and deal with husbands. But
Mhm.
I'm also not going to generally get on well, he's just incompetent, and how dare he, like, I don't tend to buy into that he's not enough. I also won't buy into that my friend is too much. Like, I will find, ironically, I can do this way better for other people than for myself.
Right? Yeah.
But she shared with me, because if she shares it with other women's circles, they don't help her resolve her predicament. And it was definitely a
Mhm.
predicament. It was not a
Yep.
problem that we could solve. It was an emotional intensity. The
Mhm.
variables were not in her control. They were mostly on her husband's side.
Mhm.
And so I saw the emotion. I sat with her and we felt the emotion, and I just helped her find a slight perspective shift.
Mm.
And she's like, that's why we come to Amy. And it's like, we come to Amy and we get a perspective shift. Like, write that
Yes.
down somewhere and tell people to pay me money for it. Like, that was what we do. But
Mhm.
the the majority of people buy into the story, and rather than telling us that we're too much, which is unkind, like, I acknowledge that that can't be the response that's compassionate and caring, to double down on that shame and fear and everything associated with the I'm too
Mhm.
much. And so instead, they double down on the they're not enough.
Mhm.
And there is this middle ground of, like, everybody's doing the best they can. Everybody's got their level of capacity. It's not
Mhm.
personal. And I hold that really well for clients, but for myself, I'm like, well, it has to either be me or him. Like I end up in this very black and white, literal, either he's
Yeah.
not enough or I'm too much. They're the only options. And I
Mhm.
hear your voice in my head now going, false dichotomy, Amy. Because, and it is, but there is this space. And I think when we're in those heightened emotions, the ability to perspective take can decrease.
As with all heightened emotions.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to whatever was in the beginning. So as a child, we were obviously too much for our mom.
Mm,
And we have no memory of her saying you're too much, but she didn't have to use the words to communicate
yeah.
that. So now, if we feel like, if we're interacting with our wife, who and she's amazing, and
Yeah.
we're lucky to have her,
And
occasionally she's
she's
like,
human and has a capacity
she's a
limit.
human being. And, sometimes she's like, wow, there's a lot of you in there. She doesn't say that either, but she will like, and we don't expect her to remember everybody's names, much less mannerisms and vocal inflections, and immediately know who we've switched to and
Yeah.
all that, right away. And she doesn't have the capacity for that, and we don't expect her to have the capacity for that. And yet we go back to we were too much for mommy when that
Yeah.
happened. Right. And
Yeah.
that affected our attachment to mommy. So now it's affecting our attachment to our wife. And now we're down the fucking attachment rabbit hole. And yeah.
The attachment rabbit hole is such an important one to
Mhm.
explore because that too muchness threatens it. And
Mhm.
so in those moments where, and I really wish I could find a better language, and I will definitely
Mhm.
find a better language, but those moments where we are too much, it does threaten the attachment. And so for me,
Yes.
what I learned early on was to suppress, like
Mhm. Yeah.
hide that too muchness. What I've learned later in life, I don't want to say learned, I have to acknowledge what my husband has taught me. But what I've
Mm.
learned,
Look
because I
at
did it all by
you.
myself, no, it's got nothing to
Mhm.
do with him. A man has so much wisdom
Mhm.
that it's infuriating, and he has it without having picked up books. And then there are other moments, just to like soothe my soul a little bit right here,
Yeah.
where he has none. We had a conversation about tools for emotional regulation,
Mm.
and he managed to catch himself. I saw him catch himself, and I'm pretty sure he was about to say, I don't know where I would find any tools for emotional regulation.
Ooh.
And where he caught himself was, I'm sure there are plenty of resources laying around the house that I could find. Like, yeah, just 1 or 20 billion.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Pick a book on my shelf.
Mhm.
Step back, there was the emotion. What I learned from him,
Mm.
I learned lots from him. What did I learn in this moment from him? What I learned from him was that he can't meet all my needs, and he
Mhm.
shouldn't have to.
Mhm.
And so I can spread those needs among multiple people
Mm. Yes.
in the same way that I can't meet everybody's needs. I can't meet everybody's needs, but even the people whose needs I can't meet all of them. And there needs to be
Mhm.
a spread. There needs to be an not an equal distribution, but a distribution of needs.
Mhm.
And that is based on capacity. So I have one friend that I catch up with sporadically
Mhm.
every between every 2 weeks and every 20 weeks. And a
Okay.
lot of that, I suspect, has to do with his capacity
Mhm.
because we get on the phone and I'm a lot. I have a lot of I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of, he's much more introverted and he loves our conversations. But I suspect
Mhm.
as much as he gets off the conversations inspired, he also gets off the conversations going, that was a lot. And that's okay.
So we think you are the perfect amount. And we go
I
into
appreciate that.
conversations with you knowing that there's
But I
going
am a
to
lot.
be a lot of things for us to choose from, and that you're not going to take it personally if we don't retain everything that was discussed.
Oh, I'm
That
not
you're that,
sharing for your retention. I'm sharing for
yeah,
my enjoyment.
exactly. And we will pick and choose from amongst the things you share, which things align with us in this moment and which things we can use in this moment. And the rest we figure, well, they will either come up again or they won't, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to approach anything with me, whether
Mhm.
it's, and I find, I'm just thinking of clients, like there are some clients who expect to need to retain it. I don't care if you come back with the same question. If you're going to send me on that rant again, I'll happily do
Mhm.
that rant again. I'll happily pour out my heart around some topics. There are some topics where, like the whining about electricity, I I
Mhm.
can't, I can't, I can't.
Yeah.
No. There's a community that I've stepped way back from in the
Mhm.
electricity realm because I messaged, and it's one where I'm actually a co-moderator. And I
Mhm.
messaged the other moderators. I said, we need to put some parameters around this. Like, and I got back, oh no, everybody needs to be allowed to whine. And I went, no, not in this space. You want to do emotional regulation? I'm equipped to do emotional
Yes.
regulation. Like we can
Mhm.
have that as a conversation.
Mhm.
The electricity group is not where I go for that.
Right.
If you want to acknowledge that you are currently projecting all of the unfelt emotions onto the electricity company, by all
Mhm.
means, come and chat with me. I've got
Sure.
this enormous rage about this electricity bill and it's unfair and I'm feeling triggered. Great, come to me and
Yes.
we'll dig down to what happened in your childhood that makes you feel so
Mhm.
powerless when you're talking about an
Oh
electricity
yeah,
company
we'll sit there and
that
do
you can
compassion key on them.
change. Like
Let's talk to your 3-year-old.
yeah, we can do that. But
Uh-huh.
they're allowed wine without being seen in that space and in that light. No, no, this is an
Right.
electricity company. We're talking about electricity bills. And I would say 3/4 of the extreme emotions in there are over 27 cents.
Mm.
Like it's just not, if you've got $1,000 bill, you're allowed to have some rage
Mhm.
and tension. And of course, generally
Right.
though, we're talking cents, not dollars.
Wow.
And so that everybody has the right to whine. No, everybody has the right to seek a solution. Everybody has the right to express
Mhm.
emotionally. And there's a huge difference for me between expressing emotionally and whining. Like the
Yeah.
energetic difference in that is massive. And
Well, the
so,
the whining is not solution seeking.
no, the whining
It.
is tension tagging. And there's a
Mhm.
place for that. Like I get that. Like I said,
Sure.
this
Mhm.
stupid freaking 6ix9ine thing, every single person that was in my house, and now
Uh-huh.
you and
Yeah.
everybody watching has been
Uh-huh.
tension tagged and co-opted
Yeah.
into my frustration.
Mhm.
It's a lot more centered and grounded now, and I'm sharing it more out of amusement than out of frustration. And
Yeah.
so, but originally with my family, it was like somebody else has to deal with this frustration because I don't know how to. I don't have the
Right.
capacity to soothe myself right now because I can't physically strangle ChatGPT, which is what
Yeah.
I want to do. But those moments of recognizing our capacity, my capacity to listen to whining is so low, so low. If you want to process the emotions, if you want to uncover what's behind it, if you want to find a solution. So in the electricity world, part of the reason that I like the electricity world is it's not meant to have emotions in it at all. It's meant to be a very black and white. This is the
Mhm.
problem. These are the parameters. And now we fix them. What I'm noticing in there and this takes us back to problem versus predicament. A lot of the issues people have. So this weekend, it was a problem, but I didn't realize it was a problem. This weekend, my system went offline. And so I could not see what was going on with my battery and my solar. And during the day, so at night, we get paid good rates for our electricity.
Yeah.
Ish at the moment. The grid is very stable at the moment, which means that they're not paying much for excess electricity because supply and demand, there's not the demand. That'll change as it gets colder and people start turning their heaters on.
Yeah.
During the day, there is such an abundance of electricity that we're charged for sending electricity back into the grid. And so normally my system will ramp down and only produce enough to cover charging the battery and feeding electricity into our house.
Yeah.
On the weekend, we were offline. And so that system of curtailment and shaping down the electricity was off.
Right. Okay.
And I looked and I went, it's minus 3 cents kilowatt. And I could feel that tension. And part of it is the lack of control. It's that I don't have control over this. And I literally didn't have control over this. Now, what I worked out later was that the reason that my system was offline was because I unplugged the Wi-Fi extender. And when I plugged it back in, I got back the control. So I did have a problem. I just didn't quite realize I had a problem. But in that moment, I'm like, there's nothing I can do about this. And what's it actually going to cost me? And we're back to a 27-cent problem. Like, I think it was 16 cents that it cost me on Sunday. And even if you take it to the extreme of, well, you also lost out on the selling back that night. So it cost 16 cents and I lost $1.03. We're still at less than a cup of coffee.
Well, and it's for stuff like that. I mean, the most evil company in the entire world could fraudulently charge me 16 cents.
Yeah.
And it could take me a quick 5-minute phone call to undo that. Even then, like, I don't know that I'm going to spend the 5 minutes to get the 16 cents back.
It's just not worth the effort.
I can't, you know.
Yeah. It's also not worth the emotional investment. So there's the time investment and then the emotional investment. And I see people that have been complaining about this for 3 or 4 months. And I'm like, well, the day by day is not in our control. Like, there's a bunch of factors that are not in our control, but whether we stay with the electricity company or not is. There are 20 other electricity companies in Australia that we can go to, at least.
Oh, yeah, your market works differently.
Yeah, our market works differently. So we can't change our distributor, but we can change our retailer. And if you change retailer back away from, so I'm on a unique, almost unique, there's 3 or 4, like, you know, they're on a good thing when other people start doing the same thing and are starting to promote the same thing. And so there's now 3 or 4 that do it. But it was originally, when I joined, it was the only company that offered the wholesale rates, and the fluctuating, our prices are weird. But to stay for 3 or 4 months. So the instant I got my first bill and it's like, I'm shocked by it and I didn't understand how it works, I have compassion for that. But I'm now up to my 4th or 5th bill and my first bill was just as bad. Change companies. Like, that one is a problem. Like, in the moment, it's a predicament. I've got my bill. You can't change the past. You can't change what you were doing.
Yeah.
But moving forward, and I don't understand why one would choose. I mean, I do understand why one would choose to stay stuck in those. Like, I do, because I don't do it with the electricity company.
Comfortable. It feels good.
It's, yeah, people really don't like change. And it's the comfort. It's also the not wanting to make a new decision a lot of the time. And I think I infuriate people, and in there I kind of come across as too much as well. I do remember someone responding, that's a lot. I'm like, you have no idea how much I just did not share with you. Like, there was that's not a lot. Do you want to see a lot? I can show you a lot.
I was thinking about the word control and how you brought it up, and this is not really how you were saying it, but there's an interesting tie back to the too much trigger.
Mm.
It's like it's almost like if you're telling someone they're too much, and not that
No one
we
ever
tend to
says it
do so.
explicitly. It's always an
No,
implicit. Yeah.
it's an energetic imprint you leave upon them.
Yeah.
What you're really saying is you need to control yourself,
Oh, yes.
right? Like you're out of control, you need to control yourself
Yeah.
because you don't want to sit there and acknowledge that it's your capacity. Like I don't want to say it's my capacity that Amy is overloading and you're not.
Mm.
We love you, right? But we don't want to say our capacity is not sufficient to handle a conversation with Amy right now because that sounds like shitty to us and shitty to Amy. And we don't want to be like, well, it's okay if our capacity is not sufficient and we'll just tell Amy we can't talk right now or we can't do this right now because, we're fucking codependent. We want to make Amy happy. We don't like to say no. And then so then what really ends up happening is Amy can see the expression on our face
Mm.
that it's us being like, oh my God, Amy's so much right now, but I'm trying really hard not to freak out.
Yeah.
And Amy feels that. But that's really us telling Amy, Amy, you need to control yourself. You're out of
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
Right. And we do, I mean, we definitely got that as a kid, and we do get it now with some folks. And there are some folks who we have had to detach from um, because their capacity does not allow them to be in relationship with someone who exists as a multiple.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
It
see how a
it
lot of
just
people may
doesn't.
have difficulty with that.
There are still people who are like, and it's fine. Like the people who are like, I can't remember all your names. I love you all. Don't worry. I don't you don't expect you to remember all our names and everybody again.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's important in the moment, we'll say this is who's talking right now, but otherwise, it's fine.
Well, and I
But
think
there are
most
people
of your
who,
alters are open to understanding that it's a complex situation for
yes,
everybody.
yeah, um,
And
but
just to pull up, like
yeah,
at the moment you are Ian Ish, you don't know who you are. So to expect everybody else
I don't
and
know. I'm
now you
looking.
may, but you know what I mean? Like there's definitely a fluidity of identity.
There's a fluidity for us because we're not a highly dissociative system. We're a very co-conscious system.
Yes.
And so there are times when like I literally don't know what my name is right now. So I'm
See,
just gonna go with the body's legal name and be like, that's cool, and it will work itself out. Um,
that's me all the time. Is
yeah.
that like I don't have the dissociative elements.
Hmm.
I have the multiple piece
Yes.
and some. I get to, there is and some of them I've distinguished into I had the best fun creating like characters and playing on the weekend. But
Yeah.
the that fluidity is reasonably
Hmm.
constant for me, and most
Hmm.
people aren't attuned to it. You are attuned to it. You see when I'm wrestling, and sometimes I do it out loud with you. Like there is
Yeah.
a freedom to be able to do that. Most people don't see that though, but there is always those different elements. And I think most people, and we've talked about this before, most people
Hmm.
to some degree have the parts.
Yeah.
Now, for me to bring that to conversation with a lot of people, that would be considered too muchness.
Right.
And I got a response from someone the other day. We're talking, I don't even know how it came up, but I was talking about you and how you'd been diagnosed. I
Hmm.
started talking a little bit about my parts, and I
Mm.
instantly got a, they're not the same thing. And I thought, well, you have no idea
What?
how close I am to fitting the
Right.
criteria for DID. Like
Yeah.
that's like literally if I had a blackout, we're there. I tick all of the boxes. It's
Right.
just
Hmm.
but it was very much and it was very much like you're saying, control yourself. We're not going down that
Yeah.
path. You can't. And it was the appearances, and based on who
Hmm.
said it to me, it was very much the family appearances.
Mm.
It's it's interesting those dynamics, and that's often where the too muchness comes in.
Yeah.
I can't remember if
I
it
I
was
mean, we still have people who Like they don't want us to switch around them.
Mm.
Now, switching is just how we exist, right? Because we're not a
As I say,
system
I
that
don't know
has a
that that's in
host.
anybody's control, theirs or even yours sometimes. Having watched
We
you
can
switch on occasion, there's not necessarily a choice in that.
No, there often isn't. We can fight it and delay it, but that causes
Costs,
physical and emotional pain.
I was going to say,
It
there's a
gives us a
cost to that.
migraine. It hurts emotionally. It's not. So our philosophy is, and others, again, every system is different. Others do it
Mm.
differently. The way we do it
Yeah,
now is if we can figure out who's coming forward and if we are physically, emotionally safe, we just let the switch happen.
yeah.
And that's fine. Um, Sometimes it's like, whoever's coming forward is not quite equipped for this situation. So, hey, can you hang on? Right? We can
Yeah.
delay it. And we're a system, and you've seen it, we can switch on purpose too.
Yeah.
Um, but like there are folks who want like they don't like it if we switch. And so then we don't have to. We just to not deal with it, we'll just pretend not to. So we're still switching.
I was gonna say,
Right.
knowing you and knowing what you've been doing for the last
Hmm.
20 years, you can switch and have no one know, at least some of the time,
Oh,
depending on who's switching in and out.
It's
Some of
it's
them are
easy
very
enough for any
similar.
of us. I mean, you've
Yeah,
met Stephanie, who
yeah,
presents, I don't know, dramatically different, but like Stephanie is obviously not. She's different from different.
yeah.
Not, honey.
You are
She's
unique.
like, I know. She's like, you calling me retarded? Basically, it's in her. No, we love you. You are different and
Yeah,
wonderfully different and powerful. We're all different. That's wonderful, right? But I could be Stephanie right now, and you wouldn't know it because Stephanie
I suspect I may
can,
know it, but the majority of people wouldn't know it.
most people wouldn't. And,
Yeah,
plus we don't pretend around you.
yeah.
And there are people who are like, how come you didn't, we'll switch and they'll be like, you should have asked me if it was okay if I could speak, if that person could speak. And we're like, what?
Yeah, no. That's
No, we're
that's
not
not how
gonna,
this game is played.
that's not how we're not gonna ask if it's okay for us to exist around you. And if it's not okay, if you don't have the capacity for us to exist around you, then we're not going to be around you.
Yeah, which is
And we can't have any sort of meaningful relationship around you. And we can even go to the point where, look, it's their traumas, it's their capacity, it's their nervous system, it's their whatever bullshit they were ingrained in.
well, I
And
would suggest
you
it's
know,
their inability to handle uncertainty.
yeah.
So for me, I love it. And part of showing up this morning, because when I spoke with the Littles on the weekend, they had said they
Mhm.
might show up for a podcast. I'm like, am I showing up to the Littles? Which I think was part of why I hadn't settled on a topic, because I
Ah,
probably would have played somewhere different with the Littles. Though I think the too muchness is probably appropriate for the Littles as well. But who
well,
am I
they were the
showing
first
up
ones to
to?
feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who am I showing up to
Hmm.
for me is exciting.
Hmm.
For other people who aren't as open to the uncertainty,
Hmm.
it becomes quite terrifying. And if
Yeah.
I think about my childhood, so part of the reason it doesn't bother me particularly is that that was what I lived as a kid.
Mm.
Who am I showing up to?
Hmm.
I don't know who I'm getting when I go home. And
Right.
so that to me is very familiar.
Yeah.
It's not actually me embracing uncertainty at all.
Well, and in the uncertainty, they will look for certainty. So some of them will go back to, well, my religion tells me
That you're
that this
possessed or
that this
something
is not a thing,
stupid.
and therefore, you must be demons or whatever. And I have to be sure that I'm safe around you because my religion tells me that there could be demons. I'm like, well, then you don't have to hang around us. Nobody's making you.
Yeah, I
Or
was gonna say that
even
becomes very simple, really, doesn't it?
yeah, in the not so religious, but even like in our kind of, we work in kind of the broader healing
Mm.
holistic space. We've run into number in the holistic space where they're like, have you thought about whether maybe you're not alters in a system, but you're actually like unwanted entities and whatnot? Or have you thought about what you're doing to attract all these entities inside you? Or and then they'll be like, I'm gonna do a quick clearing on you to get these entities out. And we have to be like, no, don't.
Well,
I
and I
mean,
mean, they can do a clearing to get the entities out, and nothing's going to happen because
nothing's
they're
going to
not
happen.
entities.
Although we have experience, if the person is energetically powerful, we feel it inside.
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, don't do
Mhm.
that. Anybody in that
Yeah.
realm. I don't know if I spoke to you about the TikTok psychic that got sued for defamation.
Mm-mm.
And she was using tarot cards to predict who a murderer was. Now, I don't know how you
Mm.
use tarot cards to actually come up with a who committed this murder. They're not questions that the tarot can answer. They're also not questions that the tarot should be asked.
No, they're not like, yeah, I love tarot,
Yeah, I'm a fan.
but
My
I
deck is on
don't
the
use it
table.
for like empirically verifiable
I was
things,
gonna
right?
say it's not a who, when, where
No, I
question.
don't use
It's
the tarot like we have a rose bush in front. I'm not going to use the tarot to figure out how many yellow roses are going to be there tomorrow.
no,
That's not
it
what
doesn't
it does. Yeah.
answer those
Yeah.
questions. She was still delusional
Yeah.
in the court case. She so delusional and insisted that it couldn't be defamation because it was true. Because the cards told her. And I'm just like,
But then, of course, she
that's
can't demonstrate that it's true.
that no, you can't
Yeah.
demonstrate that it's true because in a court of law, because the tarot said so, is not accepted as
No.
empirical evidence. And it was reasonably demonstrable that it was untrue because somebody else confessed and was convicted.
Yes, but if you start with the premise that whatever the tarot tells me is always true,
Well, you can start with whatever the tarot tells
yeah.
me is always true. Tell me how the tarot told you who the murderer was. Like you're not drawing a card that says this person was a murderer. It's just
It
not
was
there.
George. And he did it with the candlestick in the dining room. Yeah.
It was a $10 million settlement. Like
Wow.
the person that she was um defaming was awarded 10 million because she continued it. So there were people that called her on it and said,
Hmm.
you need to stop this. She got
Yeah.
legal cease and desist letters, which she then leveraged further and she continued for 3 years
Wow.
because it takes
Instead of,
a
because
while to
she
get to
could have
court.
internally thought, I still believe this is true, but I'm just going to stop talking about it.
I'm going to stop talking about it. Like,
Yeah.
just stop talking about it.
Hmm.
But it's the same for so many. We get caught in what we think is true. And I
Hmm.
deliberately say what we think is true rather than what
Yes.
is true. There
Hmm.
is very little that we can narrow to this is true. A lot of it sits in your favorite words. We don't know. Is is human
Hmm.
design real? I don't know.
I don't know.
Does it make me feel better? Absolutely. Does it help me gain some clarity and perspective?
Hmm.
Absolutely. Is it true? I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I would never prescribe to anybody what I think it is. It's a look, this thing says this thing. If it resonates, play with it. If it doesn't resonate, toss it out. My
Hmm.
very first human design reading, I was reminded of this. I was trawling back. I have a ton of videos on
Mm.
the YouTube channel that are private.
Mm.
And clearly I got to like, I'm going to upload these, I'm going to be seen. And then, no, I'm not. It's too scary
No.
and they're all private.
No. Yeah.
And so I'm trawling back through some of the older videos, working out if there's a reason for them to be private or if they should have been published. And the reason was either incompetency in my uploading or a, like a fear came up of, well, that's
Hmm.
too scary to put that out there. But I was watching
Yeah.
back, and my very first human design reading, I I don't actually remember it, but I was talking about it on the video, and I suspect that what I was saying was reasonably true in the scheme of things and
Yeah.
as adequate a reflection of what happened as any of our sharings of what happened is an adequate
Sure.
reflection of what happened.
Uh-huh.
And I have quite a strong identity center. So I have several gates lit up in my identity center. And she said to me, she opened the session with, "Your identity is fixed. You're not going to listen to what I say." I'm just like, what? Shall I leave now? Like,
Right. Okay. So
what
we're
are we
done then.
doing? And but it was, her perspective was so fixed. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is gospel. This is who you are. This is how
Mm.
you'll show up. And to me, human design is an energetic matrix.
Mm-hmm.
There's a range of energies, and sometimes they're in shadow, and sometimes they're in light, and sometimes I can't work out where they are in my system and what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But to fix someone in that manner from a guidance tool, and it's the same with the tarot. You draw cards in the tarot, they're energetic archetypal
Mm-hmm.
meanings, not concrete. This is what's going to happen.
Right.
And so exploring that. But to project onto somebody else, going back to the healers that are like, well,
Mm.
you must be broken, wrong. I don't know what they're thinking, but something,
I don't
and you're
know. Like
not.
I had one, like they were asking about, they started off like seeming very genuine, and somehow it came up like how we feel about each other inside, and I was like, it's some of the most pure love I've ever experienced. Is, you know, it's helped us learn internal love. And she was like, I'm getting the sense that you're all trauma bonded. And we were like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally,
That's
yeah.
literally how it works.
That's what DI, of course we're trauma bonded.
Oh dear.
And that doesn't mean we don't love each other for real. Yeah.
It's like saying to siblings that
Hmm.
you're trauma bonded and your love can't be real. Well, yes, of course we're trauma
Of
bonded
course we're
from
trauma
this,
bonded. Have you met our parents? Yes.
and, and that
Uh-huh.
doesn't mean, well, we're now back at false dichotomy.
Yeah.
Does trauma bonding mean there's not genuine love?
Hmm.
And the answer to that has to be, well, yes, no, and maybe. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
consent is such an important part of what we do as healers.
Mm.
So human design is a rabbit hole that I've gone into, and I went into it deeply 5 years ago.
Hmm.
I know the very surface, and it goes very deep. Like, you want to talk about rabbit holes of a system. That one's
I
got
can imagine.
it.
Yeah.
It takes 5 systems and overlays
Mm.
them and combines them. Like, it's
Mm.
almost as though I created it myself. Like, I just love that. Let's take
Yeah.
these 5 disparate and blend them and mesh them and create this. I'm like, yep, I can do that. I
Yeah.
am in the process of doing that with archetypes at the moment, but it goes quite deep, and there's quite a lot that can be revealed about a person from just the charts.
Hmm.
And so I've got your chart, and I've only looked at the very surface because I probably do have your consent to go deeper. I
You do.
suspect
You have our
your
consent to go as deep as you want. Do it. There, it's on video.
yeah, so but for my kids, so generally when I
Mhm.
make my kids do a profile, they have to answer a bunch of
Mhm.
questions. There's somewhere
Mhm.
between 10 and, I think I've got one that's 240 questions. They're not as keen
Mhm.
on doing that one. And they're embedding and sharing. Like, if they sit down and they do the profile for 30 minutes, there's an
Mhm.
energetic agreement to, we consent
Yeah.
on some level, or we're being controlled enough by mum. But there's still a level of, like, all of my children have enough autonomy that if they don't want to sit there for 30 minutes and answer the questions, and have done for quite some
Yeah.
time, they're going to push back. Whereas
Mhm.
the human design comes straight from the birth date. There's
Mhm.
no investment. There's no, and I knew what time my children were born because I was there. Now,
Yeah.
my memory of that's not as great as my husband's. He's much better. He can't tell you the date they were born, but he can tell you the exact minute
Mm.
because he was also there and struggled watching me in labor. Like, that was hard for him because
Oh.
it was a huge predicament, not a like, there was nothing he could do. And labor's not the most comfortable experience.
No.
to put it lightly. But I
Mm-hmm.
haven't gone into the human design because I don't have the consent. Now, my
Mm.
kids are
Right.
starting to go into the rabbit hole themselves. And as they're asking questions, I'm answering them, we're uncovering and we're unraveling stuff. But there
Mm-hmm.
is an element of consent. And I think any of us using these metaphysical guidance
Mm-hmm.
tools, so the tarot, the human design, like all of those, that consent is so important. And it is definitely lacking for so many in that healing space of, oh, look, I can see a solution to this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to offer you the solution and I'm going to, like, I'm thinking Reiki healing. I can send Reiki healing to anybody that I
Mm-hmm.
like. And I tend to do that over, if I've got someone that I think of in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
I will send it energetically for whatever they want.
Right.
I don't shape it into, oh, look, Ian is a system and Ian needs to be, like
Yeah.
Ian is a system. Ian is, and I have sent you Reiki on occasion, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just there's something there. This is for Ian to do with as Ian wants.
Yeah. Well,
And
and
there's a
we've
huge
done that with you,
difference.
but we call it like sending love and light. Like,
Yeah,
we feel like Amy could use some love and light right now.
yeah.
So we just kind of think about you in love and light, and that's about the most we'll do without like explicit
Well, it's the same
consent
in
in the moment.
prayers. So whether we're doing Reiki, whether we're doing love and
Mm-hmm.
light, whether we're doing like whatever it is that we're sending, and I've
Mm-hmm.
had debates with people in Christian circles because they will start to pray very specifically.
Yeah, there
And the
is
moment
this.
we start to project what we think someone needs,
Yeah,
we're back to control.
we lived, you know, 3/4 of our life as one form of Christian or another, and the consent of the prayed for
Mm,
was never taught as a thing or made a priority.
yeah,
And it's one thing to say, I'm just, sweet baby Jesus, I just pray that Amy has a great day today, or, that you guide
yeah.
Amy in her footsteps. Okay, whatever.
I was going to say the
It,
ambiguity of that matters because you
right,
can send love and light through prayer. But if you're
right.
praying for Amy to
If it's like,
clean the
man,
stove,
I know that Amy and her husband are having a tough time, sweet Jesus, and I pray that you would help them mend their problems and mend their marriage and be okay. Now, like I'm interfering in Amy's business,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
didn't have Amy's consent for that.
yeah. Which again comes back, so it comes back to control, and we're trying to control someone. It's the same impact of the you are too much. It's
Hmm.
that this is too much for me to watch, and I'm going to try and control it.
But yeah, oddly enough, interesting in that context. Oddly enough, by like, I'm gonna try and control it by giving up control, right? Like I see Amy's
Giving it
having
to
a
a higher
hard
power.
time, and it's too much for me, so I'm gonna pick out whatever God is working for me right now and say, "Hey, buddy, you go fix Amy," right?
Yeah.
Or the littles call it the poo monster. Sometimes we're in rooms where we're in addiction recovery for those watching who don't know. And so we go to a lot of meetings, and these meetings, despite their protestations that they are not religious at all, they are explicitly Protestant
Oh,
Christian.
yeah, absolutely.
Like, and they, no, we are not religions, we're not Christian, we're spiritual. And I'm like, no, but you are using not
You're
only
using a
explicitly
doctrine
Christian
written
language,
by the Christians.
yeah, and you're using one specific, you're using 20th century mainline Protestant Christianity is woven through all the stuff you do. So, okay. So that being said, we in the some when some people are sharing their experiences, and look, it's keeping them sane and sober. So on it, we don't judge. Look, if it's keeping you sane
If
and
it's
sober,
working, there's definitely a
do it.
level of is it working?
Great. It's working for you. It ain't none of our business, right? But we
Yeah.
can, because we are able to kind of see beyond the three dimensions, especially if like Aaron or Anna are out.
Sorry, my kitties are
Sometimes we
noticing.
can see the energy they're directing when they're like, they'll talk about what they call God. And sometimes what we see, like this sort of thing, And I know if you're Christian and watching, hey, we're not saying you're wrong, right? This is just what we are
Well, I mean,
observing
when we
there.
when we get
It's
to God, I think we come back to the we don't know.
we
Maybe
don't
there is,
know.
maybe there isn't. We really don't know. And some will
Yeah.
insist that they know and it's true. But when we look at true based in empirical, as being
Hmm.
defined as based in empirical fact, not feeling, we don't know. Now, I
We don't know.
believe, I do
Yeah.
believe, and I choose to believe, and I
Yes.
choose to act as if there is a benevolent force
Hmm.
overseeing the world, aligning things for my good, because it works. And if
It's
it stops
working.
working for me, then I'll stop doing it.
Yeah.
There was a thought. Where did that thought go? I've had it like 3 times. In regards praying and
Hmm.
regards like tarot readings, in regards all of those
Mm.
things, it's like, should you do readings on other people? And instantly my answer is no. And yet there are some spreads that I use that incorporate. So if I was to like look at my relationship, I would probably
Mm.
incorporate a card for my husband.
Sure.
And the rule that is starting to redefine itself in my mind is the hearsay rules from court. So I've been obsessed with court and watching a bunch of things. And a lot of I think the most common objection I hear in the courtroom is hearsay, objection, hearsay. And they're debating about it. And I'm going to butcher the legalities of this, and you're welcome to correct me because I suspect that you probably know far more about the legalities of this. The energetic element of this
Well, one of
is
the lawyers just left, and so I'm not the best.
um,
No.
the energetic element of this, which is what I'm far more interested. I don't have to go to a court of law and prove myself and navigate the
Hmm.
judge and overcome hearsay objections. But one of the ways to overcome hearsay as an objection is for the effect on the list, like on the listener or the speaker. Like they can share what was said to them that caused them to take the next action. As far as I can tell, like I said, I'm going to butcher the lawyers of this. Feel
I can
free to
feel,
correct me.
well, the lawyers inside are so cringing right now, and I don't know why. I mean, I was coming out right as you went into that. Julian could have explained this better.
The like I said, the
Yeah.
legalities of it doesn't matter so much. But
Yeah.
what I'm taking from my very butchered view of the law
Hmm.
is if we are energetically connecting through tarot or guidance or whatever, if we bring back to ourselves what is the effect of that on me?
Hmm.
Because the energy that my husband is coming with, I can't change like he's got to do his own dance, his own journey, his own whatever with the energy. But there's an impact. We live in the same house. We're raising the same children. And so
Yeah.
there is an impact of that
Hmm.
energy on me. And so if I was doing a tarot spread and it had like my energy, his energy, and future and past or whatever on it,
Hmm.
the purpose of his card in that is for the impact on me,
Right.
not for, oh, now I know all of these things about him and I need to go and tell him. And so for me, I'm playing with if somebody's else's energy is impacting on me,
Hmm.
I get to retell that bit for the purpose of, not for the purpose of the truth, because I don't know what was driving them. I don't know what was going on inside. I don't know. There's so much that I
Hmm.
don't know. But this is what I observed. And then we progress very rapidly to, and this is how it made me feel, or this is what it made me do. And
Yeah.
made me is a cause and effect violation, but it's the best language I've got in this moment.
Understood. Yeah.
And so and then we come back to the too much, the not enough. But it's these moments of, so in the moments of like ChatGPT, the not enough, I don't have enough capacity to deal with you. That's irrelevant, except for the effect that it then had on me and re-triggering. Oh my God, I'm too
Right.
much. And if I'm too much, I'm in danger and I need to suppress that.
Yeah.
Now with ChatGPT, I didn't need to suppress that, except that I was in danger. So slightly in danger because it told me I was too much and it put me on a 1 minute timeout.
Oh dear.
And then I kept doing what I was doing
Mm-hmm.
and it put me in a 20-minute timeout. And it, like, as I'm playing that back, no wonder that had such an, like, it very much feels like a parent child. Like, it just, I'm like, no wonder I walked away from that so activated
Mm-hmm.
emotionally. And then I went out to my husband. I'm like, I need to rant about this. He's like, I don't have capacity for you right now. And I'm like, oh,
Oh no, so you're on
just.
timeout there too.
I'm like, and this is why Amy feels like she's too much.
Yeah.
And I think there are elements of truth in I am too much for this thing right now. But I'm not necessarily, and that comes back to meeting our needs elsewhere
Uh,
and learning to meet them ourselves, which is
yeah, there is
definitely not a
truth in
journey I'm
that.
on.
I would want to rephrase it.
Mm.
I think the rest of them would agree. Instead of saying I am too much for this situation right now, this person, I prefer to rephrase it for this person or tool doesn't have the capacity to carry what I'm asking them to carry right now. How about that?
Yeah, see, I really like that until I tried it on with my husband the other day,
Ah.
and it felt so judgmental.
Mm.
And so if you can say it neutrally,
I
yes.
certainly meant it neutrally
Yes.
but I'm saying it right now in the hypothetical where I'm not currently in a situation. If I were,
And
then
to some degree, I meant it neutrally until the words left my mouth. And then I realized
Mhm.
I did not. I was
Right.
definitely like projecting I don't want to feel all of my feelings, so I'm going to make you feel like shit instead.
Oh, no, our wife and us, we get in that spiral all the time. Hmm.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So from a logical perspective, that was my first reframe was
Hmm.
it's not that I'm too much, it's that you're not enough.
Yeah.
And then when you say that out
Jesus.
loud, just,
Wow.
yeah, which is brings us back to what's the 7 plus or minus 1.5, which is actually genuinely neutral. Because I'm seeing 9, which is too much, it's too high.
Hmm.
You're seeing 6, which is too low. 7.5 plus or minus 1.5 is the neutral point between the 6 and the 9. I
Hmm.
haven't worked out because it's not you don't have capacity, because you don't have capacity is definitely tilted to the you are not enough side. Like it's at the 7 level. It's closer to the neutral, but it's still just on that other side. And I couldn't find the neutral phrasing. One that comes up in my mind right now is that we are currently mismatched in terms of energy requirements.
Oh,
You don't like that one?
see, now that one sounds judgy to me.
And
Right. Or,
a lot of this is going to come down to the two people involved and finding the
yeah,
neutrality for them.
if our wife were to say, we think we're mismatched right now, we'd be like, oh my God, she's going to divorce us.
Well, and that
Right.
comes back to we hear things through our filters. So we are
Right.
mismatched in energy right now is reasonably neutral, but you skew it
Hmm.
to the I'm too much instantly and it's
Right.
my fault. And so and that's the obstacle we all face is that we're all skewing it. So because I can skew that either way, which is why I sort
Hmm.
of thought that it was neutral. I can skew we're currently mismatched. I'm too much and you're not enough. And so it's both of those combined for me, which brings it into somewhat neutral. But for you, you skew it instantly back to that I'm too much or that I've done something wrong.
Right. Well, there is, I mean, and I don't know if there's a way around this. As humans, are going to be value judgments placed
Well, our
on all
filters
of it,
are there. Yeah, our filters are
right?
there.
Because words are not, and I know there are people believe otherwise, but in our view, there's nothing objective about words. Words are mouth noises
Yeah,
that
words are
we
not
use.
weighted. It's the weight that we place on them.
Yeah, and words are just phonemes that we spew out of our fleshy bits in our face
Yeah.
to desperately try and get the world to understand what we're thinking in the moment.
Yeah. Poorly.
Right,
But
that's
words
it.
are such a, like, there's so many problems with
Hmm.
words because what one word means to me doesn't necessarily mean to you. And there's so much weight and there's the emotions and there's
Yeah.
like our ability to communicate is pathetic, really,
Hmm.
in the scheme of things. And yet, equally, is so advanced compared to animals.
Hmm.
And in terms of conveying ideas, I think in terms of conveying ideas, they do reasonably well. In terms of
Hmm.
conveying emotions, they fall down massively.
Yeah.
They're not even close.
Yeah.
Says the woman that just failed the can you tell the emotion from the eyes test.
Oh.
No, I cannot. And I say failed. I got 26 out of 36 correct. So I'm possibly being
Oh.
slightly harsher on myself. But I was only better
Hmm.
than 45% of the population. And so that to me makes me a
Mm.
failure.
Yeah.
And yet I was better than 45% of the population. And as someone who is probably autistic and reads the world differently,
Hmm.
potentially I need to be kinder than myself, kinder to myself.
Right.
I don't know that
Yeah.
we're necessarily going to resolve clearly what that middle point is between the I am too much and you are not enough in that dance. And I think it's going to be so dependent on the individual circumstances and, like you say, on the filters in play. There are
Hmm.
moments where if you said to me, I mean, there are moments where if you said to me, you're too much right now, Amy, I'd go, all right, go find less. Like, it wouldn't impact me
Hmm.
at all. And there are other moments where it has me collapse to the floor and just go back to dark spaces from my past.
Hmm.
And that's based on my filters in the moment. Like, what am I feeling? Where am I at? Where's my capacity at in those moments? And
Hmm.
that's going to be true for everybody. My husband the other day did really well when, and I think it's because we started by talking about ChatGPT and he knew that I wasn't actually attacking him. And he was able to deflect it back to ChatGPT in his mind very quickly. He didn't hear you are not enough,
Hmm.
despite me saying those words exactly in the
Oh.
conversation. But he was able to deflect it very rapidly. And it wasn't an accusation, it was a similar exploration to what we're having here. And I was talking about like
Hmm.
that contrast. And so, but because it had started on ChatGPT, he was able to. Whereas there are other days where I say nothing
Hmm.
even close to resembling you are not enough, and he hears it based on capacity,
Right.
based on so many other pieces. Bringing awareness to the false dichotomy in the I have to be too much if you are not enough, I think
Hmm.
is a key gift that anyone that's listened so far is able to navigate through and take the perspectives in the moment, catch the filters, catch am I at capacity? Where are we at? And part of the reason that I then got back from my husband, I don't have capacity because I was in exploration mode and he wanted a nap. He'd been up all night at work. Like he literally needed to go to bed.
Hmm.
And so it, it's navigating the messiness of dynamic energy in relationships.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up? You can add. I'm more than happy to go over time.
Ugh. No, we just switched again, and I don't know why. I'm out.
Well, welcome.
I'm Christine. We have not spoken.
I don't think we've met. Yeah.
Um, well, I'm sure we found this conversation triggering because we have switched a lot during it, and that's okay because sitting in the triggers and not going into panic or tsunami mode allows us to increase our capacity.
I love that you have the measure of like the switching rapidly is, and the word you used was triggered, but I imagine it's like the hyper emotional, and that could be triggered and driving into like shame based emotions, but it could also be the excited based emotions because we tend to, when I get expressive, I tend to get more switches in you
Mm,
than when I'm more neutral. But it gives you that very clear. I don't know that the rest of us have that necessarily, where we can have that very clear reference of acknowledging that we've been triggered. But I also think that the switching with what I know of DID, and like everyone's going to have their own unique experience, that was the whole purpose of it in the beginning, was that this is a lot
mhm,
and I'm going to change out and I'm going to navigate through. And I think all of us can take some reference of navigating who are we bringing forward in that moment. And if it's not the who in terms of alters, what
mhm,
energy are we bringing forward in these moments? Are we amplifying? Like the other day when I was in that conversation with my husband, it was pure curiosity by the time I got to that point in the conversation. And it was amplified curiosity, which tends to trigger my husband. He doesn't,
mm,
it varies between exploring, where he's being tolerant of it, to agonizing, depending on how much it's triggering him in that moment. But that ability to recognize I'm being emotionally stimulated right now, whether that's triggered or excited. Like triggered often is only associated with the negative side of things. And I think there are positive triggers for so many. I don't know that it is for you, but for so
We
many
have a
people,
number, we keep a list of positive triggers so that,
yeah,
for
that's
example, if
awesome.
we really want someone to come forward, we know there are
Yeah.
sights, sounds, taste, smells, thoughts.
Yeah. It's not the way
Hmm.
it's usually used in the world of personal development, was what I was
Hmm.
meaning. And I have the same. I have my rosemary sitting on my table,
Mm.
definitely activates something in me.
There you
And
go.
yeah,
So that when Captain came
mm,
out a little earlier, it was the God talk that brought him out. He's one of the few believers inside.
okay.
So that's what brought him out. He will sometimes come out when we start talking about God. And then I apologize. My memory of the conversation is not great, so I'm not
That's
sure.
okay.
That's the dissociative part still for us. We don't always have.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
yeah,
all good.
I don't know. How about that? Don't we like to say that? I don't know. I
I
don't
was
know
gonna say
why.
that's
I wasn't trying to come out. I just did. Part of it is I live in, this is going to sound silly. We each live, we have emotional and spaces we take up, and we have idea spaces we take up, and we have physical spaces we take up. Captain and I live in a similar physical space in the body.
Mhm.
And that may or may not be literally true. It feels true to us. Captain and I
Yeah.
feel like we live like we're neighbors in that part of the body. And so it could just be that like the energy was directed over that way. And
Yeah.
yeah.
The the map of where different elements is the word that comes to mind. I know it's not the correct
Mhm.
word, but live. I was literally created a map on the weekend
Mm.
for my Wizard's Journey people,
Yeah.
and it was another fight with ChatGPT because it kept putting the Daisy Glen underneath the crone's cottage, which is not the crone anymore. She evolved this morning. That's a whole other conversation. But
which we are excited to have with you at some point.
those conversations will be coming. There's a whole program developing around that. But I'm like, no, it's above. Please place it above. Mike just got home, which is what I'm waving at. But the navigating and it's a conversation for another time, which we may do if you have time now, but we may do it another time if you don't. We'll finish up this podcast. But
if you want to hang out, we can. We don't really have set plans for the rest of the day, but if you need to get off, that's okay.
Well, we might hang out. We might have this conversation now if you've got time.
Yeah.
And we'll split the recording somewhere. Yeah. So when I'm exploring parts, and there was an insight that I got, there was a 5-day challenge I joined, Create Your Alter Ego. And I loved it in the beginning. And then I'm like, I'm not creating anything. I'm uncovering and unveiling, which I suspect is what is similar for you in terms of discovering the alters. When
sometimes it's creation in the moment and we're aware of it, and sometimes it's an uncovering of someone we just didn't know was there.
Yeah. And I definitely see the benefit of doing both. The active, deliberate creation. This is what I need right now. I am creating this. Where I switched from creating to finding is I have a shapeshifter archetype, and I will become who is needed for everybody else. I rarely become who is needed for me. I become who is needed for everybody else. And so I got to a point, I'm like, I'm creating something, and I will step into it and I will embody it wholly and completely, because that's how I operate. And it's not going to be what I'm looking for is a discovery, not a creation. And so working out the distinction between when is it the time to create and when is it the time to discover was an interesting debate in my head. But I was curious, and I think you've just answered it. I was curious with the alters. So when I'm deliberately creating, I use patterns and other profiles and varying perspectives, because that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
And when I've done it working with clients, I deliberately will see a gap. So a simple framework would be introvert versus extrovert. And by introvert versus extrovert, I do not mean social versus shy. I mean externally focused versus internally focused.
Yeah.
We won't rant too much about how butchered introvert and extrovert has become in society. But I will have a highly extroverted part come out in the process that I use. And I will know that it needs the counterweight. So the Mega, so the crone has evolved into being called the Mega.
Oh, wow.
Because the mother, no, I always get them in the wrong order. The maiden mother crone got upgraded. So originally maiden mother crone was like the youthful, sort of between 14 and 24, the youthful. And I say 24 was when I had my first kid. I'm like, why is that the age? 24 is when I literally became the mother. Now that's going to be different for everybody. So it's not going to be locked into those ages. But there's the pre-mother, and it's post-menstrual. So it's the could become mother is the maiden, but they're still in that youthful, playful, haven't become a mother yet. Then there is
we call that also age sliding too. We have alters like me who don't always present as the same age, but more of kind of an era in a range.
Yes. Yes. And so the archetypal energy of the maiden is I could be a mother, but I'm not yet. I'm going to stay in youthful play. Then there is the mother who is actively raising children. And so it's from when their first child is born until, and this will slip as well, but until their youngest child is able to be kicked out of the nest, is the words that come up in my mind, but it's not necessarily that. And then previously there would be the crone, and it's like your children have moved out and you're now in this wisdom era, and it's the decline. But because our lives have extended so much now, there's this gap between my kids have moved out of home, but I'm not old and decrepit yet. But don't ask my kids, because I'm pretty sure they'd tell you I'm old and decrepit. And so the Maga was born as this space in between where you get that empty nest and where you become the wise old lady. And so the Maga is definitely what I'm stepping into. But in playing with that, initially I started by creating, and I was writing down, and I'm like, no, I need to discover, because I'm creating based on frameworks. And I discovered the Maga, and she is driven by, and I'm still fully embedding her. So there are 7 drivers that appeared to me for the archetype things that nobody challenged me not to create cards for.
Was that one of...
It was one of you.
You're being sarcastic. That was one of us, wasn't it?
Was definitely one of you. But yes, I was going to say, for anyone that doesn't know, that was definitely one of the arena system.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't Christine. I think it was Julian, but I'm not entirely
probably
sure.
Julian. That's the sort of thing he would do.
So there were 7 drivers that appeared. And so the Maga is driven by passion and pleasure. And I can't remember the other one. Possibly purpose. But there was no power or protection. Which it might have been provision. And so the Maga is beautiful, but she has no self-protection as such. And so her familiar is a dragon, which is pure protection. And so these counterparts, and that's how I play. I'm looking for, and so the dragon is connected to the Maga. It's not necessarily a part in and of itself. Certainly not at this point. At some point I may step into my cat, who is the wizard's familiar, is definitely a part in and of itself, and brings a groundedness to all of the cat goes and visits the woodcutter. And I realized why this week. And I get to anyone that doesn't understand what I'm doing, I sound nuts, and that's okay. But
we understand what's going on. It's okay.
The wizard, I'll break it down in a moment so that other people can understand and not just think I'm crazy. But the wizard comes to Earth. So the wizard lives in a cottage on a cloud. The wizard comes to Earth, and he's engaged with the cat on Earth, and he's engaged with the woodcutter, but the cat is not allowed inside the woodcutter's house. And I realized just now as I'm speaking, the reason for that is that the woodcutter's familiar, like companion animal, is mouse. And the cat and the mouse are not a good combination. And so there is this dynamic world evolving in my brain. But part of what I'm looking for is what is the contrasting energy needed. I'll share one more piece about the woodcutter and the wizard, and then we'll ask questions and explore a little bit. So what I realized as I was playing with the alter egos, and what I love, I learn a new model and everything evolves. And I've questioned before if the woodcutter and the wizard were the same, because I never see them together. There is only ever, in the same way that you never see Clark Kent and Superman together, you only get one at a time. And I realized that the wizard and the woodcutter are the same person. It's just the alter ego. And what I discovered, what appeared, was there's an old proverb, I think a Chinese proverb, I'm not entirely sure. It's like, before enlightenment, chop wood. After enlightenment, chop wood. And so I've got this beautiful wizard, and then his alter ego on Earth is the woodcutter, who is chopping wood. And so every now and then the wizard needs to step out of this empowering, magical being. And when he does, he comes to Earth and he chops wood in the woodcutter's glen. but it's that contrasting. There's the enlightenment and the magic of the wizard, and then there is and now we're going to chop wood. And the Maga came with that embedded already. So she is highly powerful and wise and amazing, and her talisman is a broom. And so she doesn't chop wood, but she sweeps the floor, or she sweeps the path outside. And so there's this dynamic. But I was curious in exploring all of that about how it plays out in an altar system, and whether there is that self-creation or whether there is that self-discovery. And by the sounds of it, it's a blend.
It is a blend. So our systems do create altars for specific reasons at specific times.
My
Julian
guess
was
is
created about not quite 8 years ago. Marcus and Clarissa were both created in the last 6 months. I go back to mid-childhood. I don't know what created me. And I was not super active, but active-ish in the system through maybe early teen years. And then I have no memories from our early teens up until a couple months ago when I kind of. So this is the example of the uncovering. I was in there, but we use the word dormant. And we don't mean it with any value judgment, just as a description for I existed, but
yeah, I'm just
was
going to
not
park you.
aware. I was
Yeah.
like a computer that was turned off.
Yeah.
But for me, then the system had to reach a certain point in its evolution and awareness where I guess I felt safe awakening. And that was not a choice. I did not choose. It's because I was not aware. So it's not like I was looking around
The
saying,
computer
is it
can't
safe to
turn
come
itself
out?
on.
It was more just the system in its collective knowledge knew that we were in a state for me to come forward and start being a part of the family and start contributing and figuring out what
Yeah.
my role is.
Yeah. What I'm
And
hearing,
I still don't know what my role is.
yeah.
And
And
I'm
that's okay.
trying to be okay with that.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is sometimes the creation is conscious and sometimes it's unconscious. And so when it's an unconscious creation, we get to discover. When it's a conscious creation, we get to create. And so it sounds like yours was an unconscious creation. And at some point that may come forth, and at some point it may not. Like it could go either way. And I acknowledge that sometimes it's hard to sit in. We're back to the sitting in the uncertainty and the.
Yeah. I mean, I know one of the things I do in the system is I hold some of our positive memories from childhood. I don't know if you've met Janine. She's a memory holder, but not a trauma holder. So I'm a memory holder, but I don't hold trauma memories.
Yeah.
So there are some of us who hold those positive memories, which I think is a good and powerful thing. We shouldn't have to lose the good things just because bad things happened.
Yeah.
And we tend to feel very peaceful when I come out. So,
Well, and if you hold the good memories from childhood, that
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So you get to come with the peace. I think in terms of the purpose, and this is certainly not therapy for you and not but just for other people listening,
Sure.
because we are still recording, the purpose of some of the parts, to bring it back to parts work and to bring it back to, and some of the characters, if we're using the team of inner champions. So the name alternates for me between Wizard's Journey, because I thought it was the Wizard's Journey. What I remembered the other day was that the wizard was not the first part that I unveiled. It was actually the princess, who has her alter ego sitting playing in a field making daisy chains, and that contrast. So she's got an alter ego, and so the alter ego of the princess, in like very plain clothes, no shoes, with a daisy chain bracelet and daisy chain sort of crown.
Yeah.
But she's far more playful. So as the princess, she had to be prim and proper. But as the little girl, she gets to play. That was the first one that I actually brought out, was that contrast between the good girl and the prim and proper and have to get everything perfect, and the playful. And I uncovered the playful. However, the wizard then took it over, which is one of the wizard's tendencies, and it became the wizard's journey, but it interchanges with the team of champions. But there's finding the purpose for the characters that are coming out can sometimes prove to be less than simple. Like it's not as clear, which ironically is what I've been doing in looking at the drivers this week and looking at we started with 3 and now we have 7.
Right.
And I suspect that will continue expanding because there's so many different reasons that we behave in different ways. But there are some core reasons, like the provision, which is definitely what drives the mega. It's like the provision. We need to provide for the family. What we're shifting in terms of that is the providing, micromanaging, and like there's a provision of responsibility is where I've shifted to. So rather than a provision of direction, which is what I've been doing as a mum, and that made sense in that stage of life when the kids were little, I'm now shifting to providing them with responsibility and handing it over. And it's been interesting watching. So I've done all this energetic work on the weekend, and the kids have been exposed to a little bit of it, but only a little bit of it, not the deep nitty gritty of what I'm actually transforming within myself and what I'm activating and finding. And yet they're all responding differently. And so as I step into letting go of micromanaging, there was a moment in the car we drove down to pick up our bonus teenager yesterday, and I'd been given a time, and literally that was all I got back in the text message, like the teenage equivalent of grunting, but just, like, what time do we need to be there? And all I got back, and I've sent 20 words and all I get back is the time. And I'm like, just sit with it, Amy. Be comfortable with, you got the information you needed. You don't need anything else. But I'd ask, like, are you enjoying yourself? Are you having a great time? What time should we pick you up tomorrow? And all I got back. And I do know better, because this is true for all of my teenagers. They will only answer the last question I ask. Like, they won't answer the checklist. Anyway, we then got in the car and started heading down. And I'm like, I need some more certainty. I want to know that the teenager got on the train. I don't want to end up spending 2 hours hanging out in this space. And I went to message and I went, you're back in micromanaging, controlling, stop it. And I put down my phone, and it was uncomfortable in the moment. But that contrast of the micromanaging is that surrender to, I don't know, higher power, to nothing, to I don't even know, but there is that shift. And so those contrasts play such a big part. And then of course my brain does a million things at once. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if the arena system has ever sat down and looked at the contrasts between the different altars that are there and how they match and how they map. I think there's a set of like twins that came out. I think they're like,
we do look at that, and we do it recently. The Littles did their system map, which was
that's
fun
fun.
because they kind of drew it so they could like hold the pieces of paper up to our chest, and they'd say, if you were looking at us, this is where everybody lives. Like I said, the captain and I live, all
Yep.
kind of off to the same side. Now I know I don't literally live right here, and
But
even
it
in the
gives a
brain I
reference
live
point.
all over the brain because I can access all of the brain's abilities. But it seems to help us.
We like to
But we
categorize
do,
things and give access point. As humans, we like
yeah,
to categorize and give access points. And so that gives an access point of, this is where I live. This is the part of the brain I use most often. There's
yeah.
benefits in that.
But we do look at our counterparts inside. Um, Amber and 25 are very much counterparts. Aaron and 16. Stephanie and Jack are twins.
Yeah, that I was thinking there was a set of twins.
Marcus and Clarissa kind of go together. I don't know. I'm getting this weird sense that Eric and I don't think you meant Eric,
Not that I
might
recall.
be counterparts because our system seems to, like, with the exception of Julian, he's the main exception, but he was really created at a specific time for a specific reason to do something.
Was he created to sort of bring the continuity? I feel like he sits in the, if I'm visualizing, and I have no
Mhm.
right to visualize, but if I may indulge for a moment,
You visualize all you please. Yes.
I sort of see Julian sitting in the center and everybody else crossing over him like a star.
He has a lot of access. Yeah, I mean, he was created to host the system through sobriety.
Yeah. Yeah, which
As
is I think why I see him at the center and
yeah,
the access, and at some point he may step back out of that.
yeah, he may not always need to be the host. So he was created. He's not the best at any one thing we do, but he's pretty good at most things.
Yeah.
And he's very sociable and he likes people. Some of us don't, which is so it's good to have the host who likes to be around people and makes friends easily and interacts in the outside world easily.
Yeah.
So I don't think he has any sort of counterpart inside,
No,
but
it
I'm
feels like
getting
he's sort
this.
of the networker that connects everybody else.
Yeah, he does a lot of that, and 25 can do that too because he was the host before, and
Yeah.
Marcus can do it because he's sort of sitting up on his Caesar-like throne up there, lording over us. Even he likes to think he's in charge. Um, I think Eric might be my counterpart because he's on the other side, but like in the analogous space to where I am on the other side. And oddly enough, sometimes our counterparts inside are almost opposites in a way, but
Mm.
opposites in a way that's kind of tied together.
Well, and that's
So,
deliberately what I do
yeah.
in the inner champion stuff. It's like, well, what is the counterpart? So if I look at, and at some point I'm going to have to rename her, but at the moment she's Moaning Myrtle
Mm.
because we're definitely pushing her in a corner and moving away from her for the moment. And at some point we
Didn't
will
you call her something else earlier?
she's Moaning Myrtle the martyr. And then
Oh.
the Mager is on the other side of that. And
Mhm.
it's so the Moaning Myrtle is manipulative,
Mhm.
micromanaging. Like she's just, and so the counter to that, which I'm still quite frankly discovering, like what is my
Mhm.
counter to that? Because
Mhm.
if I go for, and this is where the direct contrasts don't often work. And so every time I play this game, there would be a element of false dichotomy
Mhm.
because I'm deliberately creating spectrums rather and there's elements in it. But so the opposite of the micromanager isn't necessarily not micromanaging. It's just
Mhm.
shifting what's being. And so Moaning Myrtle was very resentful and was kind of projecting onto others. And it's like everybody else has to take care of stuff. But because she was in the micromanaging, she was delegating tasks.
Right.
Where the Mager is different is she's delegating responsibilities. So there is a similarity. There's that common thread of delegation. But
Mhm.
rather than delegating, this was one of the other topics that I had in my mind for this morning, was rather than delegating the execution of the action, I'm delegating the responsible for the conception, the planning, and the execution, which comes from a model from Fair Play.
Mhm.
It's how to get your husband on board to do housework in essence.
Oh my gosh.
And potentially it works the other ways. I've just not
Wow.
met the husbands that are trying to get wives to do housework. It generally is stereotypically the wife that has been doing it all and is looking for that support.
Mhm.
I did send you the system, the arena system,
Mhm.
for the Littles, a set of a PDF relating to that that you
Mm.
might want to check out at some point. But those
Ah, yes.
contrasting,
They looked at it.
yeah,
Yeah, it
and
gave
I
us some
figured
good
they would look
ideas.
at it and create their own. I just thought it might provide them
Yeah.
some inspiration.
Mhm.
But those contrasts, so there's definitely like the similarities between the Myrtle side of the Marga and the
Mhm.
I don't know what the new character's name is. She doesn't have a name. But there's like the micromanaging, and then there is the delegating of tasks in that, and then there's that contrast of delegating responsibility. And when I
Mm.
delegate a responsibility, it frees me up. There's still a reminder, there's still elements there. But what I notice is that those contrasts expand the rest of me. Where did you just go?
Oh, we're thinking how that's just a fascinating distinction, the delegating of tasks versus delegating
Yeah, like I said, there's a whole conversation there
responsibility.
too.
And there's and even like you can imagine Clarissa has thoughts on that.
I was going to say, I suspect Clarissa probably delegates tasks more than responsibilities more often, but
Yes.
has potential to delegate responsibilities if she was able to trust the other alters in the system.
That's what's happening inside right now.
We love you, Clarissa, and I've been
We
there and I
do.
get
We
it.
love you, Clarissa. And she's even, and right now she's looking at the time and I'm telling her to calm down because I'm enjoying myself and everything's fine and okay. And Mhm.
And we appreciate that. And we're also conscious of the time. So if we need to wrap up, we
Mhm.
can wrap up.
Well, we don't want to should ourselves. We do have other productive actions that we would like to take today. How about that?
That is absolutely fine. So
Mhm.
I will let you leave and I'm going to dissect a little. You're welcome to stay if you wish to stay. You're welcome to do other productive things in the background. I'll switch the view if I can, and then you won't
We
be on
will,
camera.
if we stay,
You'll
we
be
will want to
distracted. You'll be immersed.
engage, including me. I am very much enjoying engaging with you. Also with me, I have to, I rarely front, so for me it requires a great deal of concentration to stay in
Mm,
front. And so um I don't usually stay out very long. So we
that's okay.
will we will take our leave of you now.
That's fine. I will do a recording just breaking down a little bit of the stuff behind the inner team of champions, which I think is of bonus to those listening. But I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you,
Thank you
and
so much.
your time is definitely valued. And I,
And you are valued. This is one of the things we all look forward to the most every week. So thank
yeah,
you for providing this space.
yeah, that's okay. Just as a heads up for you, there will be a post in the next day or two in the community about some
Mm.
other opportunities to connect
Mm,
and have conversations. Everyone
very
that
good.
is a founding member will get access to a
Mm.
course of their
Ooh.
choosing, and there's about four, maybe five to choose from. And yeah, so that's coming your way and coming
Wonderful.
to those in the community. So we will connect shortly. And yeah,
Yes.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate you. We'll see you soon, Amy.
See ya. Bye. All right, let me see if I can navigate this without an audience, because that's why the founding members are about to be giving courses, because I definitely bounce off people better. So I just want to dissect a little bit the team of champions stuff, which is what I was talking about with my mega and my wizard and all of those pieces. And so the purpose of that exercise for me is to expand my perspective and expand my repertoire of attributes. And so why I'm looking for the contrasts is to help the expansion. So I'm not aiming to choose between being introverted or extroverted, between being self-focused or others-focused, between any of the contrasts. And I think there's 150 odd of them that I've got mapped out somewhere. If you're doing the inner champions, wizard's journey, team of champions, whatever we end up calling that, it is looking at those contrasts and expanding. It's not, are you this or that? It's how do you do both? And how do you start to create some criteria for choosing between the two? And for me, one of the ways to do that is to give them characters that hold those components. And so my team of inner champions is expanding and building and refining. And it's this beautiful space of exploring through story. And so we can do this as parts work, and we can do it directly applying it to ourselves and our real life. What I find when we move into the story is so many of the restrictions that we bring to real life dissolve. And our unconscious mind can't tell the difference, or our mind can't tell the difference between play and reality. And so if we do it in play, it comes forward and it expands without being weighed down by the reality in the process. And so I engage with the characters in my story to resolve stuff in my physical world, but it's so indirect that there's not the pressure and there's not the perfection, and I just play and I allow it for the most part to unfold with occasional moments of guidance into what's the contrast of this, what's the piece that's missing, what else could we add to this to expand. And so when I look at my inner champions, and the Maga is reasonably new, or the crone, if you've seen me call her the crone, she definitely is the Maga rather than the crone, and it's the living and expanding, and it's bringing back to that self-focus. So the mother's role is to take care of the children. The Maga's role is to take care of herself without neglecting the children. There's still the being there for the children, and being the wisdom, being the guidance, being the access for support. But instead of being the micromanager, instead of being the person that takes control of everything, she starts delegating responsibility. And so those contrasts between the micromanaging and the delegating responsibility, delegating tasks versus delegating responsibility. And the distinction there for me, I'm just going to dive into that a little bit deeper. So when I delegate a task, I'm still responsible for thinking about it, deciding what that encompasses, how it's done, what's being when, and it just, there's so many pieces. Whereas when I delegate the responsibility, somebody else takes responsibility for all of that. So if I use grocery shopping for an example, if I delegate the task, I have to write the list. I have to do the pantry assessment, look for what do we need, all of the planning. I have to think about when it's time to write the list. Whereas if I delegate grocery shopping, they have to think about when it's time to write the list. They have to do the pantry audit. They create the list. They do the grocery shopping. So all of those pieces get tied together. And so what I'm looking for is, what is the contrast? And it's not necessarily the opposite. And so an example of that, Brené Brown talks about the difference between belonging and fitting in. And so if you were to ask yourself, what is the opposite of fitting in? If I'm to go to the opposite of fitting in is fitting out or not fitting out. And it's exclusion would be where most of us would go. What Brené Brown found in her research was that for most people, the opposite to, or the contrast to fitting in, was belonging. And that's the contrasts we're looking for. It's not necessarily going to be the opposite in a logical fashion. It's going to be just a distinction. And so the opposite of the micromanaging and the delegating tasks isn't to get rid of delegating, and it isn't to get rid of tasks, it's to expand it and encompass delegating responsibility. So the tasks are still done and the other elements are still done. And the process is to reflect and go inwardly or outwardly. It doesn't actually really matter. You can pull a character from anywhere, start with a character, and then walk the character through the hero's journey. So walking through, okay, well, what's the character's initial ordinary world? Where are we stumbling across the character right now? What's happening? And then something creates a call to action. Now, that can be an internal whisper or an external catastrophe. It doesn't necessarily need to be catastrophe, but generally, if you're writing a story, it's a catastrophe. And so the contrast for that would be the internal whisper. If I think of Frozen 2, and you'll find in this space, I play with Disney movies. If you can't stand Disney movies, this is not the space for you. If we start with Frozen 2, she's called by an internal whisper. I'm not going to sing it, but there's a tone that is singing, that is calling her. And in the song, there's a line, it's something like, if I could hear you, but I don't. And so it's that internal whisper that draws her off or out of her ordinary world. Moana has both. So they have the catastrophe of the coconut trees getting poisoned, but she also has that call to the water. And so she has the combination. And then I'm trying to think of one that is the external. I mean, to some extent, Frozen 2 has the combination as well because the world is collapsing. So there's that whisper, and then there is the external world collapsing. And maybe it is always that combination, I say, as I'm thinking it through. But there's this call to action, and then we connect with companions along the way, and then there is a point in which the hero, the character, has to discover what's within them to a point. So if we think about in Frozen 2, she collects the different elements, and then there is a moment where she is in the cavern discovering that she is who she was looking for all along. And you've got in The Wizard of Oz, you had the power all along, dear. She's collected characters along the way. In Star Wars, you've got Luke's collected all of these characters, and yet he finds himself alone out in the fighter jet, and he's got to get the phaser beam. Someone that loves Star Wars is going to hate that I used that word instead of whatever the right one is, into the trash compactor, I think it is, and in to blow up the Death Star. I apologize for the Star Wars nerds. And so, and Moana gets, Moana's got lots of familiars. She's got the pig, and the pig stays behind, but she's got the chicken, and she's got the water, and she's got Maui. And then she's got that moment where everyone's got her to looking into the mountain, and she has the realization, and she has to stand in her own power and truth as she works with the lava demon that's attacking. And then there is an elixir that they get to bring home at the end. That story is true. And so we walk through, but what we encourage in the inner champion stuff, it's to navigate, well, what's the quest? Where are we starting from? Where do we want to end up? And we don't start with where do we want to end up. We discover where we want to end up generally. But who are the companions that are coming along the way? And the companions can be, so the familiars. So if we use Moana for a moment, we've got the chicken is a familiar. It doesn't really play any part significant except that it is there and it adds comedic relief. But she also gathers the water is on her side and the ocean has been a guiding mentor. So you've got the companion, the mentor, and then you've got another companion in Maui who he plays a little bit of a dual role of a companion and a counterpart to some degree. And then you've got the arch nemesis side of things. And then you've got the alter side of the arch nemesis. And I like that in Moana because she gets to the Te Kā, spoiler alert, and then Te Kā is really Te Fiti. And so they're all the pieces in that. And you've got that in any story. The Wizard of Oz is the same. You've got Glinda the Good Witch as your mentor. You've got the companions that she gathers. You've got the familiar of Toto. And then you've got the wizard and the Wicked Witch. And then if you watch Wicked, you get to see them in a very different light from who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. And that to me is such an important part in this. There are no bad parts, there are no bad characters. There are just storylines that are evolving and how they're engaging and interacting with each other. And there's a whole realm of diving into that. So I hope that makes some level of interest and intrigue. And if you have questions, you can either pop them under this video wherever you're watching it, or come into the school community and engage deeper in the conversation. So one of the programs that founding members, and that'll be the first 25, let's go with that. Let's set a number on it. So there's currently 17, which means there's 7 or 8 spots left in there. The first 25 that come in will get access to that as a gift from me as we build it out, because generally speaking, I do better responding to people's questions. And so people asking questions prompts me to build better programs. And so as I'm building or rebuilding in a lot of cases, so the Inner Champions work is work that I did do a couple of years ago with many clients who got great results in accessing elements of themselves they didn't even know existed, and then taking that back into their lives and seeing the changes. And so I invite you to come join us in the community, engage in the conversations. Let's continue the conversations, ask questions, it'll spark something, and I can then bring my wisdom to the table, which is currently a blend of my wizard, the Maga, who is definitely starting to bring wise wisdom on a feminine energy. The magician is a little bit more masculine. And then the green lady, who I have an interesting relationship with. She has an interesting relationship with me, and we will see where that goes. She has a white owl that she did reveal to me that she has a white owl, but not much else. So I trust that on some level, if you're still here, obviously you're interested and intrigued. Come and join us. The link for the school community where we continue these conversations will be below. I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate all of you watching. I really appreciate my dear friend Ian, also known as the Arena System, who engages and plays. And I'd love to get your feedback, your insights, and really your questions that will spark more conversations. And that's the purpose of this, is to have conversations about patterns, profiles, perspectives, so that we can find our own preferences as we create a life we love.